I'm going to be talking to you today about the life of Buddha. The Buddha's parents were the king of Gaya, the people living on the Indian borders of Nepal, and his wife Maya. According to legend, Maya had a dream in which a white elephant entered her womb. Wise men prophesied that this meant her future son would become a world sovereign known as Buddha. When the time came for her birth, she withdrew to the garden at Lumbina, attended by her maidservants. Her baby was miraculously born from her right side, his limbs shining like the sun with dazzling brilliance. He immediately took 7 long strides to the north, and looking north, south, east, and west, he said, "I was formed for enlightenment, and to benefit all those lives. This is the last time I have been born into this world of becoming." He was named Siddhartha Gautama. The young prince grew up surrounded by luxury and wealth. He was protected from the harsh realities of life um, by his father, who had been warned that his son would withdraw from the world should he encounter such a sight. However, one day while riding outside the palace grounds, the future Buddha saw 4 things that deeply disturbed him: an old man, a sick man, a dead man, and finally a wandering holy man who had given up his home and family to search for knowledge. The prince was determined to find the reason for human suffering and to find a cure for it. He decided to leave his luxurious life, wives, and a palace to seek spiritual salvation. One night he left his palace, accompanied by his attendant and richly bridled horse. When far from the city he took off his princely jewellery and clothes, and cut off his long hair and beard with his sword. He changed his royal robes for the simple robes worn by holy men, and gave his horse to his attendant. Wandering in the forest with 5 other holy men, the prince found a very strict regime of fasting and deprivation until he almost starved to death. Realizing that he had failed to acquire spiritual knowledge by such extreme means, he resolved to seek it out by a moderate middle way. He had gained enlightenment. He took food and seated himself under a willow tree. True wisdom, vowing not to move until he had gained enlightenment and finally solved the mystery of human suffering. Mara, god of the world, sent his demon armies to prevent him, as if the prince succeeded, this would weaken Mara's kingdom, which was founded on death and rebirth. Seated in meditation, the prince resisted the physical assault of Mara's army, the seductions of his daughters, and finally a challenge to his worthiness to claim enlightenment. In response to the last challenge, he touched the earth, calling it to witness his spiritual qualities. In response, the earth shook, and Mara and his army fled. Siddhartha then entered deep meditation, and through the following night had a succession of realizations that culminated in the final understanding of the cause of human suffering and sorrow. He saw his own successive rebirths, how all beings passed into a higher and lower world, and finally how craving, desire, and ignorance were the cause of the process of rebirth. With this realization, he became a Buddha, which means awakened one. He remained for 7 days under the Boa tree, or tree of wisdom. The death of Buddha. Buddha lived until over 80. His death occurred at modern Kasa, after eating a meal prepared for him by a blacksmith. When he knew that the end was approaching, he gathered his disciples around him and gave them a last speech, like what Jesus did with his 12 disciples. His final words were, "Decay is inherent in all compounded things. Work out your own salvation with vigilance." Then, lying on his right side, on a couch between two trees, he passed into successively higher states of awareness, and then into the final state of nirvana. After his cremation, his ashes were dumped in 8 parts and distributed amongst the 8 local ruins. Burial mounds known as stupas were raised over each set of ashes. Buddha didn't force his disciples to follow him. He greatly encouraged them to meditate and analyze over what he was saying, and it was up to them whether they should believe him or not and keep following him. Buddha made it very clear that he didn't mind people following his way of life or their own. He said to people, "I don't care if you're a Buddhist, I don't care if you're a Christian or a Wiccan or whoever. As long as you're doing what you want to do with your life, and as long as you are good, whatever religion you're in, you are good with that religion and you follow that religion and that path, then you will be happy and I will hope for the best for you," and all those kind of things. He cared about nature, and he would spend extensive amounts of time meditating on his own, sometimes in prayer with the rest of his disciples. Thank you for listening to this, and good night.